All right, so we've spent a little bit of time talking about why we might need to keep that back door open, why people cling in negative feeling spaces, and how we can get out of that habit of maybe slipping again and again into a victim narrative or letting negative feeling spaces abide for longer than they need to. Let's talk, that's that clinging side of dealing with feelings. Now let's talk about the aversion side. Which are people who stay really busy, people who don't feel their feelings. When pain kind of comes up, they're just sort of like, no, I'm not going to go there, I can't do it. And they kind of slowly start to push away all of the negative feelings. They never want to feel them. And what this does is it means that you don't feel any feelings, unfortunately. You sort of just slowly numb out, become a little bit more robotic, and that's the person who can't feel love. That's the person who never laughs wildly. And that's the person who just is slowly kind of getting more distance between themselves and all of their feelings. Because as you push the negative feelings away, you can't then open up to the positive ones. We don't get to pick and choose. So we have to encourage ourselves. We have to believe in ourselves and believe in our own ability to feel hard things and then also feel really great things. And I'm going to talk about how it can be challenging to feel really great things at the end of this, but let's talk about how it's challenging to feel negative things and why we might push them away. I don't think I need to explain to you guys the way that we numb out, but I'm just going to list them really quickly so that you can maybe come on board with me and say, oh, actually, I do that. I do some of those things, like instead of feeling your feelings, maybe you go online on your phone and you text a million people, or you look at Instagram for 1,000 hours, or maybe you watch TV, or maybe you have some sort of a thing where you start to feel sad or upset and you just sort of smile on your face and you just kind of numb out and you're like, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. Or you sulk. Instead of feeling your feeling, you just kind of retract and stop talking to the world. Or maybe you just haven't really dated in a million years, or you haven't really got out there and made new friends in a million years because you're just sort of afraid of feeling hurt or feeling vulnerable or showing your vulnerability. This is the way this all manifests. So why are we numbing out and not feeling our feelings? First thing, we think we can't handle it. Sometimes it hurts and it feels hurtful and we're not sure we're going to survive. You're going to survive. I promise you're going to survive. Listen to that 1/4 second to freedom video and you're going to learn 1,000 ways that you can feel really huge sweeping emotions, and you will be there afterwards, and you're going to feel better afterwards, and you're going to feel better for it. So there's that first idea that we just cannot take it. We cannot take the pain. It's not true. You can take it. You can sit there. You can feel gigantic feelings and they can pass and you'll be okay. 1. 2, we think there's something wrong with vulnerability, like us crying or us getting angry means that we're weak. No, that's been completely dismissed. We know that there's a ton of strength in vulnerability. It's actually what endears people to us, is our vulnerability. And just read any of Brene Brown's work and you'll learn that a vulnerable person is a person who can connect to joy. So people who allow themselves to feel vulnerable are also the people who correlate to having the most joy in life. And it's also when you just think about someone who you've loved deeply, can't you remember a time that person sort of cried or was a little bit vulnerable in front of you, and how much you just loved them for it, for having vulnerability and overcoming it? So that's another reason why we push sort of away from our feelings. Another thing that happens a lot of times is that we have a space in the external world where we are shown that painful things, we should run away from them. So if you think about it, say there was a stove in the external world, you touched it and it created a burn on your fingers. The external world is outside of your body, and your skin is actually the threshold between the external and the internal. And your skin and your body will tell you when you've touched something painful or gotten hurt in the external world. So you touch something hot, you get a burn right on your body. It tells you that that thing is bad, and then we learn to stay away from the bad thing. We think, and this is called the pain paradox, we then think we can do that in our internal world. So we think, oh, I'm having insecurity. Insecurity hurts. Let me just stay away from that insecurity. I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to acknowledge it. That's how you run away from painful things in your internal space. The karma teachings, and we all just know this to be true, that anytime we don't process a hurt in our internal space, it crops back up at an inopportune moment. And what is actually really deeply profound, and if you notice this, you are going to have this sort of insight which will create a mantra inside you which will protect you from doing this ever again, is that when you don't deal with your pain in the internal space, you'll be walking through the world and something will trigger you. Something will remind you of a way that you've been hurt in the past or that you are currently hurting. And then all of a sudden you go, boom, right back to that space. You get triggered by the external world, right back to that hurt space within you. That's because that hurt space within you needs to heal, and you haven't acknowledged it and you haven't done anything to help it heal because you've been running away from it. So it literally just stays there forever until you deal with it. So you might as well just deal with it. And what happens in the external world, which is interesting, is you could get a cut on your arm, say you ran through something and it cut your arm. So very quickly, pain, we kind of know, oh, I could leave that and it might heal badly, or I could put some Neosporin on it and I can do some suturing and it might heal a little bit better. And it's true for some cuts that if you just leave them and you do nothing, they heal on their own. That is true. But it's also true for some cuts that if you just leave them and you do nothing, you don't take antibiotics, you don't go to the hospital, you don't stitch it up, it just gets worse and worse and worse and you can actually die from it or lose the limb. We know this to be true. The same is true for our internal space. There are some things we never pay attention to them, the small things. Maybe they're going to heal on their own. Maybe we're just going to get over it with time. You know, somebody said something cruel to you in a bodega and they don't really know you, but you're just kind of like, what a jerk, and you just don't even think about it. Maybe you'll be better in a week or two. Maybe that didn't imprint you very hard. Maybe it didn't imprint your subtle mind or create any karma for you. But the bigger things, the bigger hurts, you know, somebody dies, somebody's deeply and profoundly cruel to you. Unless you pay attention to it, it just stays there hurting and hurting and hurting. In a lot of cases, it can get worse. And when you don't pay attention to the hurt in your internal space, there's a certain intelligence to your body and your awareness. It will create situations again and again in your external world which are similar, that recreate and re-remind you about that hurt as a way to subtly drive your gross consciousness towards the internal help and say, hey, could you pay attention to this? Could you nurture this? Could you love this? Could you acknowledge that you're hurt and then give yourself a little hug and do some things to promise yourself you're going to care for yourself in the future and let yourself know you're not going to let that situation happen again, and you do everything in your power to care and nurture for yourself? So it's your subtle mind creating those experiences in the external world. That's that karma that creates that experience in the external world. So it comes back to you. This is too short a video to fully explain that in a way that makes complete sense, but I promise we'll get back to it. So I'm just trying to highlight ways in which we might intentionally push feelings away, and why there are some very rational ways why very smart people will do it, and why that we don't want to do it anymore. And some of the techniques that are coming up in the next videos are going to help you to see how you can not do it anymore. And when you not do it anymore, you're going to be wildly free and happy, and you're not going to create the same habituated situations for yourself again and again and again that boom back those same feelings. You got this. Sending you love. Thank you for listening.